Oh, good morning, good morning. Boy, it's bright out there. Whew. Facing the sun. Let's get in the shop here. So, I am busy this morning here wrenching away in the pole barn. Normally, I would be taking advantage of the clear skies to go do my landscaping work. But I'm stuck here at the homestead today. My truck is broken down. It needs a new alternator. Here's the old one right here. It's not charging the battery anymore. It was starting to cut out a few days ago, and the engine light's been on for about a week and a half, indicating a problem with the field circuit. And so, yep, there it is. And so I went around. I ordered another one at O'Reilly's, but it turns out it's Nipodensen or some shit like that. It was the wrong kind. You have to get this exact fucking alternator. It's got to be a Bosch 90 amp external fan, 2-groove pulley. Of course, I can change pulley if it comes with a different incompatible one. But anyway, you know, I went to 4 auto parts stores and 2 of them couldn't even get it. The other 2 wanted way too much money plus shipping, and it was going to be like a week before they could get it here in town, which I thought was unacceptable. So once again, Rock Auto saved my ass. I got another one coming in. It should be here by Friday. It's just a remanufactured Bosch, just the same as that one. And it was cheap. It was like 70 bucks plus a core charge, which I'll get most of it back. So anyhow, in this video, we're going through the power steering system in this Chrysler. And what I'm doing now is getting ready to change out the tie rods and put the outer tie rods onto the new axle. And it's very important that you take your time doing this and that you do it very methodically and you write down lots of dimensions, because you can't just slap the tie rods on there or you'll end up like my first car when I had a shade tree mechanic do tie rods for me. He just put them on, didn't take any measurements, and the toe was so fucked up I couldn't even fucking get anywhere. I had to just drag that thing into alignment shop immediately. Literally immediately. Luckily that was only a couple miles, but still I couldn't exceed like 10 miles an hour, and it was really fucked off on the tires. So to avoid that kind of shit, you have to make sure that it goes on basically the same. Now, this rack and pinion assembly is an aftermarket from BBB Industries. I chose them because they seem to actually have a pretty good QC department based on their videos, and they seem to like know what they're talking about as far as you know, maintaining these systems. Anyway, this one actually looks like it's a little bit better. As you can see, that inner tie rod shaft has a little bit more meat to it than the factory tie rod shaft. In addition to that, I discovered that it has more threads. It has more threads here, so that's going to change things a little bit upon reassembly, but we can handle it. All you need basically to do this is you know, a really steady hand and a good eye, a decent tape measure, and if you had it, you should definitely not even be doing this without it, but you need to have some dial calipers. Like these ones here are expensive. These are like about 250 bucks or something like that, and even though they're worn out, they're still really, really accurate. And that's what I use to take my measurements. So what I've done so far is keep a log here. I know my handwriting kind of sucks, but you can see what I've done. Let me just get this out of the sun. So at first I had measured from the mounting brackets to the outside jam nut, but then I realized I have moved this one around to get it out, and so it's not centered at all. This one from BBB is centered at the factory, so I'm not to touch this shaft, otherwise I'll fuck it up. Like, I absolutely can't move that or it won't be straight. So it's been straightened at the factory. You don't have to do shit, just and try not to bump the edges or do anything to knock it out of center when you're reassembling it. So, and then so once I realized that was a moot measurement because it moves, I went off a total measurement here, which is like my cross-reference measurements, and I measured this 3 times, and I got the same measurement each time, 51 and 1/16 inch. That's the inside dimensions from the jam nut to the jam nut on each end. So basically, when I'm all done, that's my important dimension right there. I have to have that 51 and 1/16 from jam nut to jam nut. So to achieve that, I've got a chart here. I've got the new assembly versus the old assembly here, and I'm recording the number of threads exposed on the old one as well as the total threads. There's 53 total threads on the old one. There's 56 total threads on the new one. So it's got a little bit more threaded area on there. So there'll probably either be more threads exposed or there'll just be more threads inside the outer tie rod. In addition to that, I use the dial calipers to record the actual distance of the jam nut from the beginning of the threads. And that's where your good eye comes in right there. And once I removed the outer tie rod, I recorded the total thread right there. And of course on the new tie rod I can get that immediately, and it ended up being 3.4 inches. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and thread the tie rod jam nuts to where they were on the old tie rods first, and that's what I've done here. So I've taken my caliper, and the measurement was 1.385 on this side. So we just hold that. My set screw is not here, so I have to hold it with my thumb. And you just hold that in place, and as you can see, I've got the jam nut pretty accurately placed on the threads to where it's 1.385 inches, the exact same as the old one where it was. These threads are a little rough. That's mostly the older tie rod, even though I kind of blew it out. I could have chased it with a thread or a tap, but being that these outer tie rods are relatively new and not factory and they're Moogs, I'm not too worried about it. So about right there. Okay, so I'm off a little bit. I need to come back. Right about. Dang it. It's a little harder with the tie rod in the way there. One more thread. A little bit more. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So now that jam nut's right where I want it. I'll just go ahead and ease this tie rod right up to that. And that's pretty much where I want the tie rod to be. But I'm not going to snug anything down until I do the other side and take my reference check from the inner jam nut to the other one to make sure they're the same. Now this side I haven't even taken off yet. I have taken some measurements, obviously, and I'm ready to remove this one now. And it's actually pretty easy to do. All you need to do... Wait a minute. Is this not a Moog? Oh. It looks like when she replaced the tie rods on this car, it was only one. This isn't a Moog. Or is it? No, this one is. Maybe the other one is not a Moog. Son of a bitch. No, it is too. That's weird. I just noticed that this one doesn't have the square. It's got a place here for a crescent wrench, but this one has a square here instead. I don't know what's up with that, but either way, they're both Moog tie rod ends, so we'll use them. Anyway, easy to take off. All you got to do is hold the crescent wrench here and loosen this jam nut, and then you can remove the tie rod by hand, typically. So my tripod is it's not here, so I'm not about to hold this while I'm doing this. So I wanted to just give you guys an idea of how to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the other tie rod, put it on the assembly here, and I'll take a measurement and I'll show you guys what the next step is.
See, once you get it loose, it just comes off pretty much by hand. That's why I like Moog suspension products. Oh, and somebody put anise on here. Good for you. And they put a lot of anise on there. I don't put that much on it. Jeez. I guess it's not a bad idea. Damn, dude, they coated it with that stuff. I don't even think I'm going to need to have any more. Look at all that. That's a lot of anise. All right, cool. Just have to thread a tiny little bit on there then. Not going to need much. A little bit. And just a hair more. All right, that's about where I want to put my new tie rod. So that's where we'll put it. And so by using this method, you can get it pretty darn close. Just be careful as you're coming up on the end there, because once it contacts, it's going to spin that jam nut. There we go, right there. And so what I'll do now is straighten this back out and support it as straight as possible. And I can get the old one out of here now. One other thing that I did that was recommended was I installed a filter right here. This is a little magnetic power steering pump filter. And you can just get these at pretty much most auto parts stores. I got this one at O'Reilly's. And you put it anywhere that you can kind of practically fit it in the return line. And that's where I decided to put it. I hope it doesn't leak. But the return line is not necessarily under that high a pressure. So the next step is to get the assembly put inside and then start putting fluid through it. Okay, so I've got it back to where it is 51 and 1/16 inches, measured with the same tape measure I measured with the old one. It's important to use the same tools and the same methods and the same locations, even if it's not that accurate of a tool. You want to be as close as you can by using consistent methods and tools. That's all I'm saying. So I have it, and the number of threads exposed is not really the same on either one. Being that they were within a thread of each other, that's kind of my goal here. So what I'm going to do now is measure the difference between each one here and try to get it as close as I can, and then let the alignment shop make the final adjustment. So on this one here, it's hard to get my calipers in there. I'm going to have to come around on this side and measure this way. So we're looking at 1.470 on this side. Okay. To move this tie rod too over here to measure it. And on this one, we've got 1.430. So actually, I'm pretty happy with that. The old one, now there's 65 thousandths in each thread here. It's like a 16th inch pitch, basically. I don't know exactly what thread it is, but that's what my calipers came up with, was 65 thousandths per thread, which is about a 16th, you know, give or take 2 or 3 thousandths. So as long as these are the same within 60 thousandths of an inch, I'd say that's within tolerance. And right now this one is 1.43, that one's 1.47, so we're only 40 thousandths apart, which is pretty good. For tape measure work anyway. I do need to snug these guys down a little bit. That may affect my measurement just a little bit more. So I'm going to do that, And I'm not going to totally tighten everything down, but I am going to use the wrenches to kind of snug it, and then I'll take another measurement and make some adjustments from there, kind of knowing where I have on each side to bring it in or out to remain within that 60 thousandths tolerance. And then, of course, when it's all snugged, I will take yet another measurement to make sure nothing has changed. I'm still within tolerance. Now, the alignment shop has much tighter tolerances and much way better machines to do this, so you know they're going to do the final job anyway, but I want to get it as close as possible. It would be cool to take this thing into the alignment shop and like it'd be dead on. That'd be just the shit, and be like, holy fuck, how did you do that with a tape measure? I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. Get these snugged up, take a final measurement, and we'll go from there and start getting this thing back into the vehicle. All right. So I've got these tie rod ends snugged. The jam nuts are snugged. And my measurements are the same. And still 51 and 1/16. Jam nut to jam nut when it's straight. So I'd say this is ready to throw back into the Crisis. And we'll be getting on our way. I'm really hoping I can get to the alignment shop today on this vehicle and get it back to my customer. I'm sure she's very anxiously awaiting it. So onward we go. And how you get this in is literally through the driver's side. It just goes right through there. There's a nice little tunnel in there. Of course, I'll have to get my lines all prepped and wipe some of that old crud down. You can see there's lots of oil in there that was spilling before from the previous leak. And also I've been purging my lines with compressed air. That's how I flush the system. Sure, that's not the factory recommended way, but since I had all the lines apart and I didn't really care to make a mess, and I sprayed it down with brake clean, a lot of it, and wiped it down with a rag, I just purged it with compressed air and then ran some ATF through the lines, about a quart. So I'm pretty confident that all the contamination, like 90-95% of the contamination, is gone. And what remains is pretty much lodged in the hoses, and it's not going to come out anytime soon. And if it does, that's why I have a filter. So I may have to service the filter at some point in the future, but that's better than replacing a new rack and pinion assembly. So, yep, that's kind of what we got to do, is shove this bad boy in there. And then, like I said, I'll hook up the pressure line, and I'll gravity bleed it first to get everything through the system. And just kind of let it pool up here. I'll probably go through another quart of ATF. I might even have to buy more. We'll see how much it takes. I thought it might take up to 4 quarts to flush the system and fill it. So I will be back with more results after I get this assembly put in place. There's no practical way for me to film it, so if I run into any snags, I'll be sure to do that though. So catch you in the next segment. Remanufactured in Mexico. I don't mind that. Mexico does some pretty good work. I'm not afraid to use anything made in Mexico. All right. I've got the rack and pinion assembly in the vehicle. It is not connected, except I've got the I do have the shaft inserted into the steering column. But I'm at the point where I need to put in the roll pin. And I'm trying to come up with a practical way to do that. I took it out with a hammer and drift punch. I don't think that's going to work installing it though, at least not starting it. So I had an idea. The cotter, or the roll pin, excuse me, is right here. And it is about 1/4 of an inch. And on the inside fits a number 8 machine screw. However, I don't believe I have ever seen a machine screw number 8 that's longer than 1.5 inches. And I'm going to need one that's about 3 inches, maybe 2.5 I can get away with. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm looking for a number 8 screw, but I've checked all my bins of miscellaneous hardware and whatnot, and I haven't found anything longer than 1 inch or 2. I mean, inch and a half.
So what I'm thinking of doing now is grabbing a framing nail like this guy right here. Because see, he'll fit through there, no problem. And then tapping that. You know, if I can find one that is a little thicker, that'd be great. Maybe this one here. Like, basically I just want to have this be a nice tight fit. And so what I want to do is cut off both ends, like cut off the tip and cut off the head, and then thread it at a number 8. This shaft should be pretty close to what size you would need, but we'll find out. Let's bring it into the shed where I can mount it up. Try not to work hard in it when I cut it off, but that's probably going to happen anyway, so I might just hacksaw. I think I will. I think I'll hacksaw the nail head and tip, because all I've got is my little grinder set up right here, and I really don't feel like changing wheels just to do this. You know, anyhow, I want to do that, so I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to just put this in the vise here and hacksaw this thing off, and I'll be back when I have it done. Okay, so now that I've got this all done, I'm going to go ahead and take those edges off with a file here really quick. This will make it easier for it to start too. Not that that matters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to thread it a little bit on both ends, probably about an inch in on each end, and then I'll be able to thread a number 8 nut on each end with a washer, hopefully. So there we go. I have my nail right there. I'm just going to thread this all the way down. This is what I've got laying around. I might be able to finagle and find it. If it doesn't work, you know, if I start using it and it just, all the threads just get stripped immediately, which totally could happen, and this tool may not work. All right. Alright. It's ugly, but I'm curious to see if it works. Now I gotta find a number 8. Let me confirm. Yeah, that's a number 10. See, there's the difference. Number 10 will not fit through the roll pin here, as you can see. It just, well, it kind of does. Actually, son of a bitch. This is going to work fine. Cocksucker. It was just a little bit, it had a burr on the inside, so I had a hard time getting it through, but this one's going to totally fucking work. Scrap this. Motherfucking son of a bitch. I was all excited. I was going to make a tool. Now I don't need to. Well, I'm still going to make a tool, but I'm going to make it out of this rod, this threaded rod here, which is already a number 10. Awesome. I'll just have this basically like so. I might even have to put another, I probably have to put a washer or something in there and a jam nut. We'll see how much space I have. But I want to shove this through the block and then just tighten it up, and that should push the this pin through. Now if I could find a bushing, like a collared bushing of some kind that had the same diameter as the roll pin, then I'd really be safe, because then I could guarantee that it was straight. What's this? Hey, I think I found my answer. See, this little thing here can slip over. I just need to cut it really quick. No scraper the whole time? Shit. Okay, well, by cutting off this piece of this vacuum plug here, I can slip that over, and you can see that it's approximately the same diameter, so that should help us. This will go inside and keep the pin centered as I'm driving it in to get it started. This should work well, I hope. Okay, so there's my tool. I've got two nuts here that are jammed together so they can't move, and then there's a washer here to let it slide, and then we've got our bushing to center, and then of course the roll pin itself, and then a little washer here, and then this will be our drive nut to put it all in. And of course, once we get it in, it's about that far, I'll remove the assembly, and most likely then I can take this out and go ahead and compress it the rest of the way in. Hey, I'm currently chilling under the Chrysler here. We've got our power steering shaft aligned and our tool in place, and look at that, I just barely have enough threads to make this happen. So I just need to turn that with a 3/8 or 10mm, because I couldn't find a deep well 3/8 anywhere. And just go ahead and turn it in, and then I'm going to make sure it gets started correctly, and then press it as far as I can, probably just a little bit. Once it's in, I'll remove the tool and pick out the little rubber bushing on the other side over there, and then finish pressing it in. It should make it pretty easy. Okay, welcome back. I've got everything installed, and I thought I was good to go until I saw this. Alright, yeah, you can actually see how much better seated the other fitting is. This is not good. I may have to put a tap die on that and fix it, because as soon as I turn the car on and let it pump some fluid, I got that leak out of there pretty good. So now I got to take it off and deal with it, which really sucks because it is a metric pipe thread. And so basically, if it's bad, it's probably actually cheaper to replace the whole fucking line than it would be to go buy a fucking metric pipe die to be able to chase that tap. I mean, that compression fitting. So gonna try my best not to fucking spill. I've still got the original caps here that I'll shove into there to try to hold the fluid in while I'm working on, but this is inevitably going to spill a ton of fluid, and I'm gonna probably have to purge and bleed the whole fucking thing all over again. So not too happy about this, and this may have been the reason the whole fucking thing was leaking to begin with. So I'm going to loosen this up. I've got some Teflon tape. If it happens to just be, you know, I honestly don't know what the problem is. So I am going to take it off and find out. Hey guys, so I figured the problem out. If you can see here, if you look at this this line here, this is our high pressure line, and you can see that there is about 1/8 inch to 3/16 of an inch of metal, of flared metal, sticking beyond the O-ring. However, if we look up in here, it's only about 1/16 of an inch. There's not much room. So what's happening is the fitting is not bottoming out. The O-ring is not bottoming out onto the other surface, and so I have to basically shorten the fitting or add some washers
before the O-ring, but I don't have any washers that size. They have to be exactly that size. You know, and I just don't have anything floating around like that. It would be something specific. If I was still a sheet metal guy, I would just fabricate some, but don't have the equipment anymore. So what I'm gonna do is just take my angle grinder here and try to take that down to an acceptable level. Hopefully I won't make a big mess and get, you know, shit everywhere. I'm gonna take precautions to plug up the ports, and of course I'll pour some fluid into the reservoir when I'm done so I can flush out any of the contaminants that I'm about to create. So that's the only way I could think of to fix this. I think that's kind of a fuck up on BBB Industries' part. The return line seems to have the normal depth, but and of course I looked at the old part and it has the same depth on both bores. So they just didn't drill this one deep enough and nobody caught it. So their QC kind of sucks. But I'm still going to go with it, and I'm just going to go ahead and shorten the fitting here so that the O-ring can bottom out and I can get a seal. That should definitely do it. And as you can see, I've got the return line hooked up and it's okay. There's a little bit of residual oil there on the threads, but it's not leaking anymore. So yeah. So I'm going to get to grinding and filing until this thing is down to where it should be, and then we'll go from there. Well, I think I got it. There it is. There's still some ATF in the threads, which are definitely not sealed. I could do a little better job if I had to put a little Teflon on each of those fittings for extra sealing. I still might. Gosh, I don't know. It seems to be okay though. Obviously the other ones, they didn't have Teflon on them before. That's what the O-rings are for. The O-rings are there to seal the fluid. So let's see if they do. So far so good, but I'm going to go ahead and bleed the system again. I already did it once, which sucked. I used the vacuum pump a little bit this time to get it, and I had to clean out the tube. Look at all the crap. I used some Q-tips to clean out all the crud from grinding off the end of that that fitting right there. So time to add my last quart of ATF and try to bleed the system and hope to God that it doesn't leak again, because then I'm not going to be able to finish today. I'll have to get more ATF out after that. So I don't know how much we used. We put some in there. Yeah, it went down quite a bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this to the fill level here. There we go, we're almost there. Alright, you can kind of see that we're at the top of the fill range. And it didn't take a whole quart, which I, of course, didn't expect it to. And then I'm just going to go turn the steering wheel back and forth about 50 times. And come back and check the level. That should push a bunch of air bubbles out, and I should have to add a little bit more. And then I'll do that a couple times, and then I'll start it up, check for leaks again, and go from there. Okay, I think I'm done. Everything seems to check out here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the vehicle on. Sounds great. The first thing I'm going to check down here is for leaks. While the engine's running, you want to make sure that we're good to go. That's where we were leaking before. It seems okay now. And our reservoir should be nice and full. I've topped it off a little bit, right where we should be.
Everything sounds good. The power steering works. We are basically ready to put the wheels back on and drop this baby back down and take her for a test drive and see how close we got on the toe. I imagine it's off a little bit, but I hope I can still drive it fairly easily to the alignment shop, and I will be able to return the car tomorrow, maybe even tonight. No, it's too late tonight. I won't be able to get it in for an alignment tonight. It's too late. It's already like 5 o'clock. So anyway, fucking A, it works. Check it out. Ooh, it's quiet too. Ah, yeah. Sweet. Cool, man. Fixed. It was a bitch. I'm fucking happy with it. No leaks. Got a filter installed. Got the proper ATF in there. Brand new air filter. This car is good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and slap the wheels back on it and fucking take it for a test drive. So, peace, y'all. Alright, we were successful. I'm filthy as a result, but it's good to go. Filter's good for another 25,000 miles. We didn't leak any more fluid. Everything looks good. Drove good. Steered good. It was quiet. Didn't hear any whining or anything like that. And no leaks underneath. I checked twice. And I think we are ready to get this thing cleaned out. So one of the first things I was going to do is give it a car wash. And it's too late to get in alignment today. I got it pretty close. I didn't feel too much problems with it, so you could probably drive it, but I'm sure it needs an adjustment still. Even if I can't feel it, doesn't mean that it doesn't need adjusting. So cool. So that's my day for today. Day's pretty much over now. Time to start drinking beer and eating food, working on other stuff, I guess. I do want to get my truck going. The goal was to get it done today, but you know, life happens. I had to do other stuff to make money, and plus that whole area issue with the motor mounts. But maybe I'll have time tonight or tomorrow to talk with it. But yeah. So anyhow, that's another video of how to fix stuff, I guess. I'm not really showing you guys how to fix anything, am I? I'm just kind of taking you along for the ride. Anywho, time to go. We'll catch y'all later in the next video. Peace.